Looks like we are being recorded. So good morning, everybody. Let's go ahead and start the meeting. Thank you very much for I guess being here virtually and participating in today's meeting. I'm going to go ahead and skip the self introductions just out of an interest of time. Hopefully everyone can see who is on here and looks all like familiar faces. So let's move to item number 2, approval of the meeting minutes. Hopefully you've had a chance to review those, but I'll give you a minute if you haven't, and we'll entertain a motion whenever someone is inclined to do so.
I have and move to approve.
Sounds good. Is there a second?
I second.
Second.
Oceanside with the second. All right. Tim, would you like to go down the list and take both attendance and minutes approval?
Sure thing. Okay, so we're gonna go down, starting at the top. Caltrans is absent. City of Carlsbad, Jim Miriam.
Hi, this is Miriam. I don't think Carlsbad was there at the meeting last time, so abstain.
City of Chula Vista,
Oliver Garcia, Chula Vista, approve.
City of Coronado,
Jim Newton, approve.
Chair. City of El Cajon,
Raul Arventa, I wasn't, I'll abstain. I wasn't in the meeting.
thank you. City of Del Mar,
Ryan Zellers, abstain.
thank you. City of Escondido,
Virpi Kukkaruotsalainen, and approve the minutes.
thank you. City of Imperial Beach,
Steve Manganello, abstain.
thank you. City of La Mesa,
Mike Kennard, approve the minutes.
thank you. City of Lemon Grove, do we have City of Lemon Grove? I have just accepted Mike James. Mike James, are you here?
Yes, approve.
Thank you. City of National City. Absent. City of Oceanside.
Aye.
Thank you. City of Poway.
This is Henry Chang, City of Poway, abstain.
Thank you. City of San Diego.
This is Claudia Brizuela, abstain.
Thank you. City of Santee.
Minji May, approve.
Thank you. City of Solana Beach.
Jim Greenstein, approve.
Thank you. City of Vista.
John Hassanen, approve.
Thank you. County of San Diego.
Zubir, approve.
Thank you. Do we have anyone from North County Transit? Absent. And finally, MTS.
Dennis Desmond, abstain.
Thank you. Allison?
Thank you.
I think you missed Encinitas. Abe Bandigan, I'd abstain, but I'm present for this meeting.
Oh, thanks, Abe. Sorry, I missed you.
It's okay, we're a small city.
I thought so.
Okay, is that all the votes, Ellison? We in?
We are good. Thank you, Chair.
All righty. Thanks, everybody. Moving on to item number 3, public comments. I know we have at least one had a request from Eric Rohr. You're on.
Okay, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, great. Thanks. Eric Ruhr from VRPA Technologies. I wanted to give everyone a brief update on SB 743. That's the change from level service to vehicle miles traveled for CEQA transportation studies. And my role is I'm chair of a local task force for the Institute of Transportation Engineers. So kind of three quick things. I want to mention our experience so far. This is kind of statewide, talking to people. It's kind of various different experiences depending on the project. Some projects kind of, really simple, do a VMP analysis, no big deal, and move on. Some projects are finding that they can't mitigate their VMP impacts. And so they're kind of needing an EIR and kind of getting stuck, not knowing what to do. And then there's a third kind of projects, tend to be the bigger projects where, some of them don't have a clear idea of their methodology or how to avoid getting sued. So they get caught up in kind of a discussion of, what model do we use, what methodology, what guidelines. And so it's a kind of a complicated process. So that's kind of what I've been seeing so far. It's very early, so we'll see as time goes on how this affects everyone. Then I wanted to mention with respect to the ITE task force that I chair, we develop regional guidelines, and they're available on the ITE website and various other places. We develop regional guidelines, and we're looking at whether they need to be enhanced, modified, or whatever. We're looking into a couple things. The OPR, the state agency that developed guidelines for SB 743, has asked that external trips outside the county be accounted for. And we're looking at whether our methodology really takes those into account. And so far what we're finding is that for most projects, 90% of projects, maybe more, we've got that covered. But there may be some projects near the borders of the region where we need to make some adjustments. And we've got sort of a memo posted on the ITE website that talks a little bit about that, and we're doing some further work on that. Also, we have a second white paper posted on the ITE website that has to do with modeling, and the SANDAG is currently using two models, the RTP model from a few years ago and then the more recent federal RTP model. And those two models are handled differently with respect to SB 743. So we have some information on the two models and how they might be used, which is, from ITE's point of view, it's just in the form of recommendations and information, so not binding in any way, but talks about the two models. Third thing I wanted to mention is I've been asking people statewide, and as far as I know, there's only been one lawsuit related to SB 740. We're certainly expecting more, and it's not on a project. It's actually on our own San Diego County's guidelines, and there were some environmental groups that sued, and they sued on the basis of three things. The first was they said there should have been an EIR done on the guidelines. The second thing was the minimum project size for doing an SB 743 analysis. The county uses state guidelines of 110 ADT or average daily trips, and the lawsuit says that state guideline is not applicable in San Diego County because the trip lengths are longer than the statewide average. And then the third thing that they're being sued on is that the county is using for residential projects an average of county areas for project DMP per capita compares to the average of the county, and that deviates from the state guidelines, and the lawsuit says that they should have used the state guidelines of the average of the incorporated cities. So from my point of view, I disagree with the lawsuit on a technical basis on all three counts. We'll see where it heads. In terms of the regional guidelines and the other cities, even if the courts were to rule in favor of the people putting forward the lawsuit, I really wouldn't change the regional guidelines for other cities. It may affect the county, but I'm not seeing anything where I say, ooh, I wish we would have done the regional guidelines differently. So that's my quick update. If you have time, I can be available for questions, or folks can contact me individually by email.
Great, thank you. I do see at least one question,
Yeah.
and so we can take a short amount for questions here. Zabir.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Eric, you know, I'm not interested in talking about the lawsuit and against the county, and you may know that the VMT really is under our advanced planning or planning people, not the traffic engineering. What I'm interested is that would your group now that a lot of agencies, including Caltrans and the county, is looking at doing what we call it LMA, which is local, traffic, whatever, mitigation, whatever it is. So where we look at the roadway safety, not truly the capacity and level service, but the safety that will be incorporated as part of the traffic impact study. Would your group gonna sit down and look at this part of doing a traffic study and what the region should be looking at, and what guidelines would you propose? Because I know I'm reading some Caltrans asked me to look at their safety guidelines that they are proposing, where you have trips that goes into the freeway and look at it from a safety perspective, not anymore from the CEQA perspective. That's my question.
Our guidelines, we do talk about a local mobility analysis for typical level service and delay, and those are we're basically recommending that those be done in the typical way as they've always done. For safety, we are silent on the topic of safety, and it's by design. There really wasn't any clear path, and I'm speaking for myself because I don't, I think you'd get a divergency of views on the task force that created the guidelines. But my opinion on that is that there's just no real clear way to do safety. It's such a touchy subject with, potential lawsuits if you say something is unsafe, and we're really leaving that up to the individual practitioner. And of course, Caltrans is just starting to address that issue. They don't, I don't think they know what they're going to do in the long run with that. So we're maybe someday down the road, if there's clear guidance and a unified way of looking at safety, we'll put it into the guidelines. But right now, we're just being silent and leaving it up to the individual practitioners.
Thank you so much.
Looks like we've got a couple other questions. Hamid?
Thank you. I appreciate that. On the safety, I think Caltrans is working on guidelines for safety review, safety improvements of developers. I have seen the draft. I think they're going to be releasing the draft pretty soon, but the ultimate, the final guidelines for safety review of developments with regard to VMT and others probably is not going to be released until 2022. Now, one quick question I have from you and our other colleagues online is that obviously we are using like the ITE thresholds. We are using 500 and 1,000, which is higher than 110. But the question I have is that how are you approaching the mitigation measures? Are we going? I know that some cities have already studied this and they're going project by project. But there was also a thought about preparing like a citywide mitigation package for VMT, because the smaller projects cannot really do anything meaningful when it comes to VMT. Even at 500 threshold, for example, it's like 50 single families. And if a developer comes to your city and wants to build 50 single families, what can possibly he do to do a VMT reduction for his development? So it might be a better approach to have a citywide VMT reduction measures and programs and projects in place and have a kind of a fee program. I know that some cities have stayed away from that. Have you heard, or has anyone on the call, are you pursuing that kind of approach to do a citywide mitigation package and have a fee program that smaller developers who are still above the threshold pay to that fee program instead of having a specific measure for that project.
I'll address the fee part of that, and you can follow up if you want to ask other questions. I'm personally not pursuing any fees. I've talked to people about doing that. It's a complicated process because you have to go through, and it's like a traffic impact fee. You have to carefully figure out what you want to put in, what projects, what the fee should be, so on and so forth. I have heard of 2 agencies that have done it, maybe 3. City of Pasadena has some fees. They have a little bit different approach to SB 743, but they have some VMT fees. The City of Los Angeles, just for a portion of Los Angeles, West Los Angeles, they have a specific plan where they've done some VMT mitigation, and I think LA is looking at an overall fee. And then City of San Diego is pursuing a VMT impact fee program, which last I heard it was about to be approved. One thing to note about VMT impact fees is you are not likely to be able to mitigate all your VMT impacts with a fee for most cities. So you mostly likely have to do a statement of overriding consideration. So projects that can't mitigate their own VMT impacts would pay whatever fee and then rely on the statement of overriding considerations to avoid having to do an EIR.
Thank you.
And Sam.
Thank you. A question for Eric, actually. So we, the City of Vista, worked with STC Traffic to put together a program for us, guidelines based on the new SB 743. And a couple of things in there is that I think Hamid mentioned we're using the 500 and 1,000, the regional threshold that's recommended by ITE. And I think I heard you, Eric, say that we shouldn't worry at a local agency level about the lawsuit that's ongoing right now and just proceed with our guidelines. And the other thing in there is that we do have the LOS as well. And we're justifying that based on local traffic operations and safety, as well as to consistency with the circulation element general plan. And then we are treating that pretty much based on the old thresholds as far as significant impacts and triggering mitigations and so on. So I just wanted to kind of get your input on that. We're taking this to council on December 8th, so in about 3 weeks or so. Okay,
I'll take the second question first, related to, if I understand the question correctly, related to level service. It's no longer truly a CEQA impact, but you're certainly free as a city to require improvements for whatever whatever effective developments you find, and you can continue to use the old rules, and it's a city enforcement police powers rather than a CEQA impact now. And I have not yet run across any agency in the entire state who is gone completely away from level service. So you're in good company. Everybody's doing something with respect to level service, and many are just continuing to use what they did before. With respect to the threshold, the minimum threshold for VMT analysis, we with the regional guidelines, we chose the 500 for projects that are inconsistent with the general plan, and 1,000 for projects that were consistent with the general plan. And we were one of the first to vary from the 110 ADT that OPR, the statewide agency, recommended. Since then, I know of several agencies that have gone to different numbers. Sacramento County's at a little over 200. I think City of LA is something like 300 based on congestion management. Fresno and Tulare County are at 500. And then there's some cities that have gone beyond 500, and they're using some air quality analysis as a basis. And so if our current guidelines are based on basically 20 years of experience that, the thresholds have worked for previous traffic impact studies. But if that air quality justification holds up, we may want to adopt that as our basis, because you can, using the air quality argument, you can get a lot higher than 1,000. Kind of depends on your air quality district, so on and so forth, and some of the details. But you can get above 1,000 using the air quality basis. And a couple of cities, I think Victorville and maybe Redlands, have done that. So that's something to take a look at also.
Okay, thank you. And just to add, we're not proposing a citywide fee program. We're just sticking with the just individual project mitigation. Because like you mentioned, Eric, I did a little research. It looks like it would be complicated to put a fee program together. Not to mention that we, the city would have to implement the projects, which we don't want to add more projects to our CIP than we already have.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I would recommend we itemize this subject for the next meeting or the meeting after that. I think it's very interesting to our community, the traffic impact fee and the TIS and all that stuff, whatever you want to call it.
I was just gonna ask if there were more questions or discussions. Perhaps we should put this on a future agenda. Eric, would you be willing to come back at a future meeting and chat more with us?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Fantastic. We'll be in touch. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Were there any other public comments? I'm not seeing any.
I am not either here.
That. All righty. We'll move along. We've got a couple discussion items on the agenda today, starting with number 4, a report from Ellison on a working group update. So, Ellison.
Thank you. Just give me a second to share my screen. Okay. So thank you, Chair. And first and foremost, thanks everyone for attending today's meeting. This is probably one of first of a series of meetings that we're going to have regarding this topic of our 2 transportation working groups. And apologies to those who are also on CTAC who heard a little bit about this 2 weeks ago at our CTAC meeting. We'll go through this, but then we've turned this into a discussion item for this working group to take in this information and to hopefully have some good dialogue based on the information that I'm providing. So as part of our fiscal year 2021 overall work plan, as well as an ongoing strategic planning effort by the agency, SANDAG's has undertaken an effort to assess the current state of our 2 transportation working groups, both CTAC as well as your working group, SANTEC. The goal of this SANDAG effort is to establish, a revised working group structure that supports both SANDAG as well as you as our member agencies to improve coordination and to, improve meaningful engagement. And what we want to do is to re-examine these working group roles in light of, everything that's sort of changing. Our groups are decades old, as I'll get into in my presentation. And are these groups and the charters for your working groups, are they keeping up with trends in technology and advanced transportation? And are we meeting your local and needs in this regional forum? I think that these are things that we've begun to talk about with a certain amount of folks, but we introduced this notion to CTAC 2 weeks ago and wanted to bring this to this working group officially today. So I'm going to give you an update on where we're at and what our next steps are, but I wanted to start off by reviewing, giving you a review of sort of our initial kickstart effort that kickstarted this whole effort, which was we assembled a focus group of your peers, both from CTAC and SANTEC, back in mid-December. Make sure my slides can advance here. So we got some folks together back in mid-September to kind of kickstart this effort. Wanted to get some initial feedback from a group of folks that represented all corners of the county, right? We wanted to make sure that all the sub-regions were covered. We certainly wanted to make sure that your chair or vice chair for both CTAC and SANTAC were available. And because of that sort of geographic reach, wanted to make sure that the city of San Diego, as well as the county of San Diego, were invited to participate as well, just because of the geographic extent of the county, as well as the, a lot of what we've talked about in the past with transportation. A lot of it is happening in the city of San Diego, just in terms of road mileage and traffic signals and the like. So I think we got a good group together, and we had some meaningful dialogue. We laid out sort of what we wanted to do in terms of, hey, SANDAG is supporting these working groups at a regional level. We've got regionally significant transportation projects that you obviously know what we advance, but we've got a lot of advanced transportation and ITS initiatives that were also carried forth. And a lot of you have been hearing about them both over the years, as well as more recently, either through some of the comprehensive corridor management plan, MCP efforts that your cities might be involved with, as well as just, again, regional efforts such as our regional plan and again, our ITS program that Alex Estrella and I are part of. So, and then at the local level, a lot of you are advancing or considering advancing a lot of these smart cities initiatives that are out there. And I know that as a group, when I took over 2 years ago, we, one of the things that I tried to engage you with was sort of a smart arterial, smart signals type of, agenda thread or agenda series that, I was hoping would engage SANTAC in terms of making that connection between what you're working on at the cities from a traffic engineering perspective, and again, these smart city initiatives that are, developing throughout the country and within our region. So the focus group got together and talked about kind of the formal structure of these two working groups. There's a hierarchy with SANTAC and CTAC. We went through the charters, and again, your working group as well as CTAC are decades old. The charters, as from our records, haven't been updated much since the 90s. I know that in 2005, there was some charter revisions made to include more than just traffic engineers as part of SANTAC. Again, the membership is pretty well established. Most at CTAC, there's a one agency, one vote structure in place with membership, with the transit agencies as voting members and not Caltrans. And over on the CTAC, on the SANTAC side, you all have a vote. Currently it's a weighted vote with the county and Caltrans having 2 votes and the city of San Diego having 3 votes. And again, we're subject to the Brown Act, as well as all of you as voting members are subject to conflict law. So you all sign a Form 700 in order to participate on our group. So the focus group, we mentioned what's happening today. A lot of what we do is driven by our Transnet program. Our local streets and roads program is really a focus of our CTAC group. And for you at SANTAC, you've been hearing a lot about the regional plan, performance monitoring. Sometimes you hear about active transportation projects as you're developing them, or as you're developing them in conjunction with SANDAG in terms of our active transportation program within the Transnet program. And then, of course, this group has been involved closely with our regional arterial management program that was deployed back in 2013, and we've been keeping an annual maintenance of this program through your funding year after year since the deployment back then. So, and those are the projects that we're working on today, but what's coming down the pipeline in the future, right? We just went through an October 29th, a joint working group session 5 big moves, our vision for our 2021 regional plan. You all know the big moves by now, next operating system, mobility hubs, flexible fleets, and complete corridors. It's our intention, and if you haven't felt it already, it's our intention to operationalize and bring a lot of these 5 big moves concepts to life in the next in the near future, right? Most of you have heard or have been engaged over the years in our ITS program. We're currently working on our regional ITS architecture and strategic plan. There's a regional TISMO project that was funded by Caltrans that Alex Estrella has been working on with local cities as well as with Santec. This notion of advanced traffic signal control, we talk about it, at Santec. And there's been projects over the years that, some of the local jurisdictions have been advancing, especially with adaptive over the years. But we haven't really had a coordinated, regional discussion about it. And that comes with, a lot of times that comes with funding opportunities and the like. But we have started a regional smart intersection concept. We have a concept of operations that we're developing as part of our regional TISMO project. And we also have, as part of the regional TISMO project, we do have this notion of a curb management system that we'd like to advance as a pilot for TISMO. So we've got things coming down the line, and we want to make sure that both the members at both CTAC and Santec, as you represent your agencies as transportation professionals, we want to make sure that you're engaged on all those projects and providing good input. Again, just to fill out the list here, we've got connected and autonomous vehicles that we've all been waiting for and has been through various ebbs and flows of development at the federal level and how that's coming down the pipeline. Down to the local level, where, it's still, in fits and starts, and has, we've had, different, initiatives that have come in, and electric vehicles are here, and they're going to continue to grow, and we're going to have a growing infrastructure that we're going to need to support that growing EV fleet moving forward. Right, and again, as always, as we've talked about, both directly and indirectly over the years, emerging technology, that's just going to be part of, how transportation and mobility is going to evolve, in the coming years. And, we've obviously, through our next operating system and some of our corridor and transit efforts, we're trying to keep up with that as well as you at the local level. So we went through the focus group with that, saying these projects are coming, and they're coming from a regional perspective, and we want to make sure that you are all being meaningfully engaged and providing input at a working group level, right? So we did an assessment of the last 3 years of agenda items at both CTAC and Santec. We provided this to the focus group. Santec meets about 8-9 times a year. We know we have our built-in months that we go dark, but we have over the years have had to cancel meetings just due to lack of agenda items or lack of participation. Or attendance. We acknowledge that there's, because of the size of some of our local agencies, that, a lot of our Santec members are also CTAC members. So there's about a quarter of Santec members are on CTAC. And that leads to sort of a, duplicative effort in terms of, reaching out to the, to the same folks, whether you go to CTAC or Santec. And then about a third of the agenda items that we've covered at Santec are also provided at CTAC. So you're seeing a lot of redundant membership and a lot of redundant discussion that's going on between the two working groups. We estimate that almost 2/3 of the agenda items that have been covered the last 3 years at Santec have been regional in nature. I know as your coordinator over the last 2 years, I've struggled with the chair and the vice chair to keep the cupboard full of agenda items. These need to not only come from we certainly can provide them from a regional perspective as Sandag business comes up, but you know, we're looking to you as the local agencies to bring, you know, local items to the table, because we know that that's what you guys are, you members are interested in, talking about local projects, you know, at a regional forum. And I think that this is a forum for you to show off your projects, to bounce ideas off of folks. And so, but as far as, you know, the hard numbers, you know, we're at about a third of the projects are local in nature. And again, quickly on the CTAC side, again, the same redundancy in CTAC, Santec membership. You know, again, a third of the items are covered at CTAC and Santec, and at CTAC, almost all the agenda items are regional in nature, and that's just sort of a built-in thing with the topics that are being covered, the charge of CTAC. You know, there's a local streets and roads program that's funded by Transnet. A lot of funding and programming agenda items go to CTAC, as well as a lot of SANDAG business in terms of performance monitoring and management. Again, you hear about State of the Commute and our federal projects as well. Sorry about that. And again, the RTP, you know, something that we take to both groups. So, so CTAC, you know, again, here's a lot, you know, again, the CTAC members and the CTAC charge is to think from a policy perspective mainly. And so a lot of these items both come to Santec from a technical level and then go to CTAC at a policy level. So, you know, our initial stab at challenges to both working groups, you know, again, the charters feel like they're not matching our current needs in you know, over the last several years. CTAC feels like it's confined to Transnet and local streets and road program. The focus has been on that over the last several years. You know, we felt that there's you know, lack of engagement and spotty attendance. You know, you could call it poor attendance at Santec and lack of engagement on both working groups. And a lot of that has to do with the redundancy in the agenda items and in the membership. If you know, if you come to both and you hear that the agenda is the same, you know, 2 weeks later at Santec, you know, I'd understand why you wouldn't want to show up, because you've heard the agenda items before, and we all know that you have busy schedules. And so, you know, that's certainly you know, an outcome that I'm not surprised by it. And, you know, we've tried to embrace this idea of having a regional forum for technical knowledge transfer and exchange with our peers. And, you know, Chair will open it up to this kind of discussion moving in a bit after I'm done here. But, you know, as your coordinator, I'm not feeling it as much. If you want my personal and professional opinion, I don't think we are embracing it, and we're not talking the talk and walking the walk with it in terms of having meaningful engagement at a regional level. Either the topics aren't there, or the interest isn't there, or what is it about, you know, this particular working group and the structure of it that is not conducive to that type of information exchange. And then the one that I certainly hope we get to talk about today is not being able to bring in private sector, you know, to talk about technology, to talk about smart mobility, talk about these emerging things that are either here or coming in the horizon. We haven't provided, you know, Santec the forum to do that, and there's reasons for that we certainly can get into. A lot of it has to do with you know, making sure that we're fair to vendors, because if we invite a certain company to come in, we'd have to invite all of them. So a lot of this has to do with the conflict of interest that we're all subject to as part of this working group. And we opened it up to the group in terms of, you know, did we capture all the challenges? Well, what is it that this focus group, you know, is there anything that we missed? You know, and kind of challenging these, your peers that we're serving on the focus group to look inward and figure out, are we meeting your needs? You know, is the regional forum meeting your local needs? And then what ideas that you have in terms of creating or enhancing that regional forum and advancing, smart mobility, smart cities and technology. How do we best engage the people at both CTAC and Santec? How do we best engage, right? So I think as part of your agenda packet, I've provided both these slides as well as the notes on the findings from the working group. Because a lot of these folks are on the phone today, I don't want to, take the time to get into that. Hopefully they'll be able to share, some of their findings, because I think that's better that you hear it from them than have me sort of regurgitate the meeting notes that I provided. So we took their input, the focus group input, and I'm just going to riff off of this next step slide. What we've done since that September meeting is staff has gone back and done a extended peer review, best practices of our peer agencies within the state, and tried to reach out to some folks like Sandag out beyond California. And so we've done that extensive as we could, given the time period and the fact that we're all working from home mainly. We have reached out and have identified a few peer agencies, and we also did some outreach to the folks that either support our working groups or in terms of other working group coordinators. And we also asked our peer agencies at both Caltrans, our local assistance partners who provide you with updates every month. We asked for their input, as well as our transit agencies who recently haven't been part of both working groups, but we use this opportunity to do some outreach just to get them back. And we're glad to have MTS on the phone today, and hopefully moving forward, we'll have North County Transit back on as members of both working groups. And so we grabbed some input from them as we strategically reached out to tell them about this effort. So we will share, we shared these findings with this focus group back on Tuesday, and we will certainly do that again at our joint meeting on December 3rd that we're going to have. In terms of recommendations for discussion, I think, I don't think, based on what we heard from this focus group on Tuesday, we will probably not have some hard recommendations, but we'll probably have some consideration and some parameters for restructuring and change, potential change. We will probably bring some more discussion items back to the joint group of CTAC and Santac on December 3rd, but we are certainly working towards making some recommendations as we continue to get your input on this today, and as well as on the 3rd. And my charge is to work with staff and take your input and work on a roadmap towards what that future looks like. And before I turn it back over to the chair, to kind of get us going on discussion, wanted to make sure that, that change is coming, right? This is not, potential change. This is change that we are looking for, not only with these two working groups, but with all 30 plus working groups at Sandag. So there's going to be a certain level of change. We just happen to be the ones that are going first, right? And as you think about, and I hope you had a chance to go over the agenda item attachment that I provided and what was provided 2 weeks ago to CTAC. I hope that this provides enough information, and again, hopefully we can answer some of your questions from myself at staff level, the focus group members that are on the phone today, and as well as your chair and vice chair who are part of the focus group as well. So, Chair, I'll turn it back over to you, and if I'll be happy to entertain any immediate questions, but really want to focus on getting your input, your reactions to this effort, anything that I've shared with you in terms of the first focus group session. And then again, we'll look for your patience as we try to, figure out how to, put together the next steps in terms of providing the input on December 3rd to the joint group of CTAC and Santec. So Chair, back to you.
Great. Thank you, Ellison. So as Ellison said, these are two working groups with long histories, and my personal take, I think it's a good opportunity that we've got here to review our core purpose of each group, assess whether our roles and responsibilities are up to date and meeting the needs of Sandag today and into the future, as well as our own. So I appreciate the opportunity that Sandag is giving us here to kind of help shape our future. And so, as Ellison mentioned, we're going to be hearing more from Sandag at our joint meeting on the 3rd about what they see as their needs from these two groups. And so we've got to start discussing as Santec, as members, what our needs are from our local agency perspective. And so, as Ellison mentioned, we've had a focus group to kind of get things going and get some initial parameters to kind of help guide the conversation. Some other things that I think are important for you all to be aware of and keep in mind as we kick off this discussion that have come up in some of those preliminary focus group conversations. This is an opportunity for us to request changes to make our time more beneficial for us as traffic engineers and local agencies in general. Perhaps, Santec, as we know it today, meets your needs, and that'd be great to hear. But if you have ideas on how we as local agency representatives or traffic engineers could benefit more from our participation or make it more productive, this is our chance. And so I would encourage you, don't necessarily feel limited to thinking about our needs in terms of Santec or CTAC as it exists today. Think a little bit more in general. What are our needs as traffic engineers or local agency representatives in general? Once we identify those needs, we can work with Sandag on what the appropriate group or format is to try and meet those needs. And in talking about needs, something that we've learned or we're learning more about in some of these initial discussions that I want you to be aware of, because it has come up in prior Santec meetings, and we've discussed about changing the format, for example, to see if we can do a non-Brown Act format to allow some flexibility on items and discussions. And what we're learning, hopefully I phrased this correctly, is that if we as a group are talking about policy level items, then we're probably going to have to comply with Brown Act. But if we as a working group or ad hoc group, whatever you want to call it, with specific tasks, specific timeframes, then we might have more flexibility when it comes to Brown Act requirements. And that may lead into our ability to have those presentations from vendors or technical experts, depending on what we identify as our needs and how we operate as a group. So that's probably enough time that I've chewed up. Before I open it up for general discussion, though, I would like to ask if any of the other focus group members have any thoughts or comments that you want to share before we enter into sort of the larger general discussion. I see Hamid, I think you had your hand up that I saw, so let's go to you first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very quickly, thank you, Ellison, for the invitation and including me as part of your focus group discussion. It was a very good discussion, and I learned a lot. I for one, I think I would like to encourage to hear a lot more from the members of Santec who were not part of the focus group, and see what our other colleagues are thinking. in terms of the need for a change to make the group either more relevant or more effective for our use. And again, in my view, and I don't want to take too much time because I like to hear from the colleagues who were not in the focus group, is that when I go to a meeting, my purpose is that I learn something and I contribute. So how can we make this something that is more useful to the members, and how can we have more influence over whatever the direction is going, the region is going. So I'm going to stop here, and I would love to hear from the other folks, see how we can make Samtec more relevant or reformat, restructure, and refocus. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw a couple hands go up. Let's go to Zubir first, followed by Sam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I concur with what Hamid is saying. Maybe being in the focus group, we want to see what our members of the committee want to hear. But I always had this goal in my mind, being a Samtec member, is how do we bring the higher pictures or the bigger pictures to us as working on a day-to-day our traffic engineering. We really need to work hard to construct that bridge that brings it the regionals, and that's what SANDAG deals. But how does that impact me working on a day-to-day basis, that I need to respond to a stop sign and things like that? And I think that's very important. If the members can see that, then they can see a merit of coming to the meeting and learning from it. And with that, I think I want to hear from the other group, but I do have 2 additional recommendations that I want to share with the group, and I want to come back to it. But that really is my goal, or my thinking is always that bridge between the region versus the local, region to the local. And that's, to me, if it's clear, then it becomes clear to us to come in here and worth our time. Otherwise, it's not. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Zubir. Sam.
Thoughts. First thing is the Zoom meetings are much better because the driving time obviously is eliminated. I'm able to attend every meeting, no problem. I think hopefully that's an incentive to others. And then the second thought I had is that we kind of got away from talking about our immediate issues, traffic safety, traffic operations. We used to talk about yellow timing, I don't know, all these other things, parking. I think it's just a suggestion that we should have a recurrent item on the agenda just for ongoing operational and safety issues, and where not one, specific member is burdened with a PowerPoint presentation. It's just an open item, but it would be decided maybe the month before. The next month we'll be talking about traffic signal yellow time, and the following month we'll be talking about I don't know, loading zones, and just to share thoughts, kind of an open discussion, and that would be a recurring item. And the third thing I wanted to say is in the last year or two, there's been a lot of feature planning items, which of course we're very interested in, but that seems to be the focus, and that seems to be like really long-term down the road, like the 5 big moves and the big vision about the operating system and so on, and it's all great stuff, but I think a lot of us feel the reality is that it's probably far down the road, and we somehow need to connect that to what we're doing now. For example, a lot of cities don't even have like the interconnect and communications to their signals. Their controllers are still old. So maybe, we should have another recurrent item just to talk about our kind of current technology for each city and what the real needs are right now. That way, maybe cities can feel a little bit of hope that maybe, my system is going to get upgraded or something, or maybe in a phased way or a gradual way or something like that. So we need that connection to kind of our long-term future plans to what we have right now. So that's kind of the thoughts I had.
Lots of good stuff. I'm doing a lot of typing in the background. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Who's next? Who's up? Quiet.
You want me to start sharing my thoughts?
Let's go for it, Zubir.
So we don't. So I have 2 items that I like SANDAG to consider as part of these changes to our committees. One is the on that slide that challenges. And the last item is constraint on emerging engagement with private sector technology companies. I think that's really is important because most of the research, especially for the CAV, is being done by private companies. It's not by, so here's my thought to SANDAG, if it's possible to not get around the Brown Act, but to actually make it part of the Brown Act, is maybe we do advertise for maybe 6 or 8 times a year. And you invite these companies, you advertise and it says, hey, we have a group, technical group that is interested in your technology. And then you kind of tell them, and then you bring them in. And every time you bring, like you advertise and you got these 10 companies that are, they say, yeah, we are interested in presenting a specific technology that we are working on to your group. And they submit their proposal or their statement to SANDAG, and SANDAG, okay, we take A, B, C, and D, but not the F for this time. And then they put it on the agenda that, on the meeting of February, we are going to hear from Toyota talking about their advanced, automated cars. And so when they come in, and we stress that we really are more interested in the technology itself, not Toyota selling their stuff, but more what are you doing in the technology to help us, and what we need to be doing to get you ready for for that technology on our public roadways. So maybe that's a way. I mean, I don't know, maybe SANDAG or Allison can look into it and see if that is workable, if we would do it that way, because I think we can benefit a lot from the technology from that perspective. That's one. Two, I think it's ready. I think Tom came in that we start looking at not only transportation modeling, but safety modeling. Now probably in 2 years or so, that every local agency, if they want to apply for a safety grant, the LSTP, we have to prepare a plan. We have to have a plan that shows, okay, here's what we did, here's the accident where we have them, and this way. So if we have SANDAG look into this, the region models where it incorporates safety into it, then maybe we can identify more bigger pictures, the safety improvement needed in our system. Then every agency can take out of that and prepare their specific local and says, okay, here's the model. It says, this is the area that we need to work on in, say, the county. And we take it and refine it. Then when we apply for the grant, it becomes part of the bigger pictures. And in general, the federal government and the state really likes that, because you're looking at the bigger pictures of reducing, fatalities and severe accident in a region-wide, because that's what they want, because then it shows better for the statewide, then it shows better for the nation, and all falls in it. So I think it's about time that SANDAG start thinking about incorporating the module of safety improvement into our transportation model and start looking at safety. And that also helps us in the TIS, because now maybe some city calls it level service, local level service for not CEQA, but not the VMT, but the other side of it. Most of the cities now are really using the word safety into it. We need to improve this intersection because it's unsafe. Can't let this development go in. So that becomes very part of it. So when we have model that tells us that, then it becomes all justifiable, all makes a lot of sense. So you see the whole house coming together from a safety perspective. And that to me is important, at least to me as a traffic engineer, to make a safer roadways, whether I'm building sidewalk, whether I'm changing my striping, whether I'm adding street lights, all those are part of the bigger pictures that makes the region safer. So with that, I wanted to share it with the group, and hopefully you guys take something out of it and we move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Zabir. Good points, and I particularly agree with you. The contact with vendors and the real sort of boots on the ground type experts, I think personally is critical to this group's mission. you know, technology is going to be key moving forward to traffic engineering and implementing, you know, everything that has to do with the regional plan. And I don't think without that direct communication with vendors, we're going to be able to keep up or plan for some of these things. So moving forward, I think we've got to find a way to make that communication happen. I totally agree with you there. So moving on, I'm seeing a couple hands. I hear maybe we something from Mike James and then followed by Hamid. I'm watching my chats and everything else. So Mike?
Yeah, and I threw that in there, and I'm kind of starting to think outside the box. And so one of the things that I did real quick was just look at the CTAC and SANTEC agenda list and just trying to gauge who's on what. Meetings are rough, and I love the idea of maybe we just go virtual from this point forward, but I think that's a whole paradigm shift that all of us are considering in our entities. But then I think about, you know, what are some of the topics? I'm not an engineer, not traffic, so I rely heavily on my contract engineer group. But the other piece that I worry about a lot is just the ongoing maintenance. We don't have the interconnect going on, and I'd love to get roundabouts, but how do I even afford that? I know our traffic units are outdated. And so a lot of the times I scan, and this is just from small city, right? I'll scan the agenda, and if I don't find really anything applicable, if I have something else that's going on, and oftentimes I do because I have to pick and choose, I won't go. But, you know, and one thing that was brought up earlier was the agendas are somewhat similar, you know, at least maybe halfway. And so if I can catch the info on one side and miss it on the other because of conflicts, it helps me out. So I guess I'm looking at it more from my role as ACM and Public Works Director. It's tough to juggle this, but it's also very important. And so that's the piece where I do rely on Rick Engineering to come in and help me with that aspect. And but I mean, the contacts here are vital because, you know, I shot an email to Zabir and we were working on a project on the east side of our town. If I didn't have this contact, I wouldn't really know who to reach out and I wouldn't have the relationship. So that's the other piece that I find is almost more important than anything else from both groups. But just my two thoughts. I mean, if there's a way that we can work it out and consolidate, maybe that's the way to go. But then I do understand the specifics so that each group does have, and the importance of kind of getting into the weeds, and then how do we elevate that to the region? Thank you.
Thank you. If I could ask you a follow-up maybe regarding, you know, time spent in meetings and learning and whatnot. We never really have had a way to just put information out there. Technical papers, just no discussion required, no meeting required, just here's some information that came to us as the group and put it out to the group. Would opportunities for that, it sounds like, would be helpful in your case to keep up with things?
Yeah, it absolutely would. And I mean, the brain trust that's here is, I mean, that's a huge value for, I would imagine, for everybody. So if there's something that's important that's going on from the state level and then eventually transitions down into the region, San Diego level, and we push out white papers to be able to help folks, I think that's vital.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hamid, did I see your hand go up again?
Just very quickly, you know, I'm going to share very briefly my experiences working with also Orange County and LA County folks on the same format, same things for years. And these groups are either mandated by ordinance, similar to ITALC, for example, the Independent Taxpayer Oversight Committee that you have here, that has a very specific task, a focus, and in that case, even budget to hire consultants and do what the ordinance and asks them to do. For example, in Orange County, the Measure M, their sales tax measure over there, has a signal coordination component, which gives every year gives, and that's like a $250 million program over a 30-year lifetime. And that $250 million program requires that there is a traffic signal coordination forum that they must meet so many times a year. It has a very specific task assigned to it, and that makes it subject to Brown Act and so on and so forth, and open hearing and posting of agenda and all that. At the same time, those counties realize that that may not be the best format for sharing of technical opinions and bringing in vendors and like that. For example, Orange County has also a group that's called Orange County Traffic Engineering Council, which the cities can participate if they want. LA has a City Traffic Engineer Association, which is closed to vendors. It's only for traffic engineers to get together as they want and discuss. So something here is that if Sandtech is required by ordinance as part of the board of directors requiring this group to meet, then there must be some specific assignment and some expectations in terms of feedback. Otherwise, if it's a technical sharing group of peers, which is very good and is very important, then it can be done in maybe less formal format, maybe non-Brown Act requirement and things like that. And in terms of policy input for the region, there are always opportunities. And like, as you said, there are 35 working groups and some of the members here, and I saw the chart that you put up, and you have some overlap between the membership of this group and CTAC as well. Or even I'm not a member of CTAC, but my boss is a member of CTAC. If I have a concern and it's on the CTAC agenda, I can always tell him and he can share that. So there are ways to make this more effective and more two-way communication. If we want to change the structure, we want to change the format, and we want to change the focus. Just wanted to briefly share and again, see what other colleagues have to say. Thank you.
Let me ask you about that if I could real quick. Would you see benefits to in some way combining the two groups to try and reduce the redundant meetings and that sort of thing, and have that combined group sort of be that Brown Act venue that you talked about, but then have that group assign very specific tasks to this sort of Sandtech group?
Absolutely, absolutely. I see benefit not only in terms of the cost saving and the process saving, but even better coordination between myself and my boss, for example. If there is a joint meeting, CTAC, for example, whatever you call it, CTAC/Sandtech, or a new group, and say Director of Public Works is the city rep, and city traffic engineer or manager of transportation is his alternative. So one of them is available, and they have to constantly communicate. And it's one department, one position, and one interest that goes to the one city, and one interest that goes to Sandtech. So there is a possibility to combine this group and still have an opportunity to have the benefit of the technical expertise of traffic engineers that are represented here. This can remain as an ad hoc. This can remain as a non-Sandtech sponsored group that's going to meet like Arctech or CTE, City Traffic Engineer Group in LA. There are ways of doing it. And even if that group's, whatever the new name is, CTAC/Sandtech, if they want some specific items that need to be further evaluated technically, they can always assign a subcommittee, and that subcommittee is going to meet and bring it back. So I see opportunities. I'm not alarmed or threatened or concerned if the two groups are combined. I don't think we are going to lose the expertise and the brain trust that this group has. I think we are going to actually use it more effectively, because then these people, then myself, for example, I have to better communicate with my boss, who is the Director of Public Works, because now we are both on the same committee together. He may be the primary and I may be the alternate, but there's opportunity to do it. And again, I heard Shahir saying something, and I totally agree with him. I have a lot of respect for Shahir throughout the years I've worked with him. He sees the big picture and also focuses on the local needs. And if we want to have the expertise of this group can remain either under Sandtech auspices or as independent group without complying with the Brown Act. And if, for example, the issue of SB 743 comes up, or yellow timing comes up, or there's a change in the speed law, which is going to happen next 2 years, in my opinion, at the state level. And then that new group, that combined group, wants specific recommendations from this group, they can always assign a subcommittee and say the subcommittee of this group go and meet and come back with the recommendation. So when I heard Sandtech looking at the possibility of combining focus groups, the working groups, I'm not alarmed. I'm not concerned. If it's done properly, it's going to actually encourage and elevate the influence of this group over policy decisions that region, in my opinion.
Yeah, I could easily see under that sort of a scenario that combined group would have so many subcommittees and assignments that those subcommittees almost make up the new Santec, if you will, and each subcommittee reports to Santec about their progress, their updates, that, you know, and the Santec group can give their feedback as it makes its way back to that combined group. I could easily see
Absolutely, and
something
those
like that happening.
subcommittees do not necessarily need to be subject to Brown Act open public meeting requirements, advertising and agenda and all that. They can focus, get into nitty gritty. Let me share with you very briefly example of my days in the California Traffic Control Devices Committee. I spent like about 16, 17 years with them. And when we had issues that needed really technical expertise and really detailed discussion, we would assign a subcommittee, and I chaired 2 of those subcommittees. One of them was to change the speed law, which we did, and another of them was to change the minimum yellow lighting, which we did also. And I brought like groups of 20 people, private and public, together. We did a whole lot of discussions on the speed limit. We had like 12 hours of workshops. On the yellow timing, we had about 20 hours of workshop. And these were like non-subject to Brown Act and all that. We did all that discussion and we made the recommendation in a Brown Act meeting to the full California Traffic Control Device Committee. So even if the SANTAC and CTAC and all that are combined, we will always have the opportunity to approach technical issues from that perspective, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Let's see. Minji, I saw your video come up. Did you have a comment or?
Yeah, I did, but I think Hamid already covered all I wanted to say and more. So thanks.
You got it. You got
Oh, I'm sorry, Minji.
Chair, can we hear from some other folks? Just, we got to wrap this item up because we do have a COVID roundtable item that we would like to get to, and Caltrans still needs to make their presentation as well.
Sure, and just to remind everybody, this is not the only chance we're going to have to talk about this. We will have more chances to talk about this. So Zubir, I know you had your hand up, but let me see if there's anybody else, and then we'll try and wrap this up. All right, I'm seeing some comments in the chat. We're reading those and tracking those as well. So let me do this last comment. Make it somewhat short. Zubir.
Yes, I will. I just I concur with Hamid, but I also wanted to address what Mike said and also Sam said. You know, nothing prevent us as a group on the side when we get to the technical issue that is, let's say, a city is dealing with, to maybe shoot that email to all of us, the group of us, and says, hey, I have this issue. Anybody dealt with it? I think that's probably if Sandec could, between us, have that email and all that stuff, we could do it on the side. And we, you know, and Sam will have an answer from, say, 5 of the 15. This is how we did it in our city if you wanted to do it. So that can help us a lot, because it really is, that's the core of this group here, is help each location helping, each agency helping the others. That's all I wanted to say.
Gotcha. Thank you. Ellison, want to turn back to you. Is there, having heard all of this, is there anything else you want to follow up with before we close this item and move on?
Just real quick, Chair. So I appreciate everyone's input. For those who didn't get a chance to provide input, you know, we will have more information for you on December 3rd. Again, part of a larger group. Just fair warning, that's going to be a 2-hour meeting with a packed agenda. People are swooping in. They, you know, again, the power of joint meetings, right, is that we get you all in one place, so everyone wants to talk to all of you. So, but you know, this is you know, the first of a couple meetings, we think. You know, we may not have all the answers for you. You know, we aspired to have it on December 3rd, but it looks like, you know, we want to continue to get this input and think things over and continue to coordinate. And again, this process also involves, you know, our legal counsel in terms of what we can do. Just wanted to make sure that, you know, all of you know that, you know, this working groups is supporting this and hosting this at Sandag is Sandag business, right? So as much as we want to provide you as a local agencies the regional forum, I hope that you don't lose sight of the fact that you're participating in a regional forum, and we want to make sure that the local business that you're bringing to the regional forum is aligned with the regional business, right? And so because this takes resources, as your coordinator. This does take time. As Hamid said, there are groups like you north of us that are well funded by sales tax initiatives, right? So LA Metro, Orange County, Bay Area. These are, I'm going to talk about these groups on December 3rd, but just let you know that our Transnet program that does not have a structural program in place to help support your arterials and signals development. So we want to talk about these things, but all of these working groups are being supported by Sandag staff with not much funding behind it, right? And so just keep that in mind as you reflect upon your local needs and trying to match what you want out of Santec or a future working group. What you're bringing to the table locally needs to align with and be balanced with what Sandag's bringing to the table and offering you a regional forum. So just keep that in mind. Thank you, Chair.
Gotcha. All right. Thanks, Ellison. Good discussion, everybody. I appreciate it, and look forward to future discussions on this topic. So we'll go ahead. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, number 5. Again, just general conversation, discussion, effects of COVID-19 on local traffic patterns. No formal presentation here that I'm aware of. It was again intended to be an open conversation. As I understand it, we might have some thoughts from La Mesa. Do I have that right?
Yes, Jim, thanks. Question for the members. Speed surveys, engineering and traffic speed surveys, currently kind of with the pandemic conditions and some of the change in traffic patterns, we're interested to find out from some of the other member organizations if they've had any feedback from courts. We would like to, we have a lot of surveys that are going to be under expiration, and we're going to be trying to extend a lot of those. We're just looking for feedback from the group regarding how you're approaching those, if you have any concerns at all, or if it's just business as usual.
Anybody? Sam, see your hand.
So we've been having a problem with we're doing radars for the expiring speed surveys, and the speeds are coming back pretty high. Speeding has been a big problem, during the pandemic, and that's some most complaints that I'm getting right now. And we're really not sure what to do with these high radars coming back. One thing actually I was just talking about with my staff is we haven't done the 10-year, sort of like the 3-year extension in the past. I'm kind of starting to consider that maybe on some of these speed surveys do the 3-year extension so that the current radar holds for another 3 years. But definitely, yeah, it's been a problem.
Gotcha. Yeah, thanks, Sam. Hamid.
Yeah, just very quickly to echo that, we have used whatever we can to do that 3-year extension that the CVC allows us. The surveys come back high. I have a study that was done actually by my former team and in conjunction with SCAG. I'm going to share it with Ellison, and if he wants, he can share with all the members of the group with your permission, Mr. Chair. That's a study that shows that the traffic safety is actually deteriorating under the pandemic conditions. The volumes are going lower, the speeds are going higher. People, they have higher anxiety and higher stress and all that. So pandemic has shown demonstrable and documented adverse effect on traffic safety. This may not be the best time to actually, in my opinion, do any traffic speed survey, because that's not going to be representative of real traffic out there. But we are running against some deadline also. We have some deadlines that we have to do our ETS, otherwise our posted speeds are not going to be effective and enforceable anymore. We will see how we're going to approach it, but it definitely has affected us.
Gotcha. Zubir.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I am on the other side of the spectrum. We do about, I think, 6 or 7 speed survey every about 5 weeks, because that's where the tech meeting is. So far, all my speed surveys are fine. I mean, we sit down and look at the segment and we reevaluate the locations where we studied before. We don't automatically do the same locations. We really, every time we evaluated, and I hadn't had any issue with it. I think one location I've been doing with the city of Chula Vista, it's in the south where the roadways county goes from county to Chula Vista. And, very good luck with the community. And we got to reduce the speed limit from 30 to 25 miles per hour as a local roadway based on the speed survey. So yeah. But when you talk about the court, I mean, it's the highway patrols. We give them the speed survey. They like it. And usually it really is, a lot of them are not based on the 5 miles per hour decrease. It's just the 85th percentile. So there is nothing to argue about. Here's the 85th percentile at 44 miles per hour. Therefore, the speed limit is recommended at 40, and we just go for the manuals. So yeah. So I mean, just to respond to the city of La Mesa, the county, we have the experience that is a little different from North County. And I understand what they are telling, what they are saying. I just, maybe we're the county, they are the city is a little bit different, but that's, So maybe the other thing is it tells you that the speeds were constrained in the first place anyway, somehow, so that's maybe now it's really telling you the true speed where it should be. So as long as we stay with the 85th, but thank you to Hamid and his task force that we are looking, the state is looking for other parameters than just the 85th percentile. So that's, where you use better your traffic judgment to make it more, reflect the community. So thank you.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you, Hamid. I saw your hand go back.
Yeah, just very quickly, Zubir mentioned the task force that I served on. For the last 2 years before I came to Oceanside, I served on the Zero Fatality Task Force that was put together by Secretary of Transportation. It was a legislative director from that bill that Assemblywoman Friedman had introduced. If it were not for the pandemic, the state speed law would have changed in 2020. There was actually 3 pieces of proposed legislation that were put on the back burner because the whole legislative agenda changed and the priorities changed. Otherwise, the state speed law would have changed this year, would have become effective January 21st. My best guess is that in the next year or 2, we definitely are going to see some major changes in the state speed law. So again, I'm not going to put things on hold because things may change in the next couple of years. But if I have any latitude that I can use that 3-year extension, administratively go from 7 to 10, I would use that, and I would not do any new survey until the state speed law changes. And as Zubir said, it's going to give us more flexibility.
Gotcha. Mike, I saw your hand pop on.
Yeah.
Did you have a comment?
No, I guess question, or go ahead, Zubir.
No, I was going to say the 3 years extension. I think Minji asked me about it even when I was in Poway 6 or 7 years ago. I've been using it forever, so it's like since I really was at the position of a traffic engineer. I think that's given to you in the law. And if you go there and you feel the, geometrically and the environment hasn't changed, the traffic has increased only, based on the region. So you can't say change, and you just write your letter and stamp it and make it part of the speed survey to go to the court. So
one of the changes, very quickly, Mr. Chair, if I may, one of the changes that is being seriously considered is that 3-year extension become either 20 or become permanent. that as long as you do a speed survey in an urban setting and the environment, the ambience, the backyard, background, the land use and all that has not changed in the professional opinion of a registered traffic engineer, you allow the locals to maintain that posted speed limit, either up to 20 or indefinitely, and only major changes in the geometry or the land use will require you to go and do a resurvey.
Yeah, that's excellent.
That'd be nice.
That's in the pipeline. Whether it passes or not remains to be seen.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments related to this topic or other COVID topics? Sam.
Sorry, was a quick question for Zubir. Actually, you said when you were in Poway, you did the 3-year extension. Is Poway under the North County Court? Or is that where, you know, where people contested their?
No, I think it's in Claremont.
Claremont,
I think.
okay. Because the North County Court is a different, that's why
Yeah.
I wanted
No,
to.
but, you know, I know what you're saying. I think somehow you need to go to tell the judge, look, the law gives me, I am the traffic engineer, not you.
They don't talk to us, so.
No,
But I
I know,
think
but that's just tell them
Oceanside,
to
yeah, Hamid
take a
said
walk.
you do the 3-year extensions too in North County, so that should be okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is Abe. I had my hand raised. I'm not sure if you guys are catching it or not.
Missed it. Sorry, go
One
ahead.
question. No worries. One question for the folks. Guys, how far are you utilizing the prima facie residential district or business district per CVC? I mean, MUTCD has a language about the number of unit per quarter mile, one-sided, both sides. I've heard that from our deputies that judges have a hard time accepting these tickets because they refer to the language of the CVC where it uses district, and that becomes like a planning phrase, just instead of just saying, oh, we have this many units, so now it's a residential road or residential street or something. They're saying, oh, this calls for a residential district or a business district. A lot of roads in our cities, especially smaller cities, have that many businesses if you count them, or have that many residences. Do you utilize that prima facie 25 option often?
Just throwing it out there, Coronado does, and we haven't had any problems with it yet, but we've used that definitely on a few of our speed surveys. Sam, and then we'll have to probably move this topic along.
Yeah, I was going to say we use it too, but we follow the strict definition in the vehicle code with the 13 units in a quarter mile or whatever. The only thing in North County that the judges or the traffic commissioners asked is that we be very specific about the quantity on the cover sheet of the speed survey. So we actually say it's this length and this number of units, therefore it meets the ratio in the vehicle code. They wanted to see that, but other than that, it's been okay.
Yeah, we put that data in ours as well, so it's worked out all right.
Two questions on this. One, do you go with the lot, or if it's like an apartment complex, you consider it that number, that many units, or it's like a townhouse or something? How do you treat it? One property, or?
I think it's considered one business, as far as I know, commercial property, basically the whole complex.
How about residence?
But it has to be within, is it 75 feet front in the street? There's very specific rules in the vehicle code about how to count and what to count.
Yeah, but
okay.
Abe, I had to deal with that issue, and we do use the residential district for a prima facie 25. And it really is one driveway. If one driveway leads to 2 homes or 3 homes, it's 1 unit in the way we use it.
But none of you guys establish as a planning document and go to council or whatever entity you have to establish those districts. So district that doesn't have the planning meaning for you when you want to utilize the prima facie, you just basically treat it as a ward. Because our council, we have like 2 business districts established in our we have a Muni code, and in the Muni code says this is like downtown is a business district. In El Camino we have another business district, and there are other implications with those. When a corridor becomes a business district, there are other planning implications associated. But what I'm hearing is you guys basically just treat that district as a simple ward in there, and then just count the number of units and businesses, and that's it.
Well, I mean, in that simple word, I mean, it is defined in the MUTCD, what is a residential district. I think it's like section 605, whatever it is, or 400, whatever, you know, that's really it is. So you as a public agency, I don't believe you need to establish that district. It's already defined for you. As long as you meet those guidelines, that is your district. Has nothing to do with your planning district that you have established in the downtown.
Yeah, and there's actually two separate vehicle code sections. One
Right.
defines, and then one gives you instructions on how to count exactly. It's very, very specific. So it has to be on an individual street basis. And by the way, there's two conditions that have to be met. You have to meet that business or residence district density, plus it has to be a local road on the California
Right,
road
the
system. So you have to
two-lane
meet
and-
both of those.
Yeah, the 2-lane.
Okay, very good to know. Thank you.
All righty. Thanks, guys. Keeping an eye on the clock here, let's go ahead and move along to next item on the agenda, Caltrans update. Rob.
Hi, good morning. Hope you find these updates useful, and certainly I always find these meetings informative, so just wanted to let you know. But the main thing I wanted to highlight, I think, from the notes here is the inactive projects for, let's see. Okay, that was just updated, so none of the agents, so all the agencies listed there still have outstanding inactive invoices, and I think the deadline's tomorrow for the current cycle. And probably you've already heard from your area engineer that their FHWA is really asking for justification on some of those, a lot more. I was hoping to have some new information today about the new federal lands access program applications. They said to check back after the 18th, which was yesterday. But so as soon as I get that information, hopefully by the time the December joint meeting comes up, they'll have the actual details on that. But the link is there just to kind of give you an idea. I know, like, for example, the San Diego National Wildlife Refuge in East County partnered with Caltrans and the County of San Diego to try to put in an application for improving parking and access for visitors to go there. So it's basically, the idea is to find ways where there's a federal agency, to have the local roads provide better access. That's what that program's about. National Forests, I think, is another one that they work with. Some of these other ones, they think they're just kind of the standard ones that make sure you get your, because we have the new fiscal year, federal fiscal year just started. We want to make sure all those allocation requests get in by the end of January so that they can get processed in time. Again, a lot of those funds are oversubscribed, and then there's a couple of agencies needing to update their quality assurance plans next year. Sandag and the city of San Diego, and then any agency that's not on the list that wants to apply will need to do that. And I just wanted to also point out on the Title VI, I inserted a sheet here on page, I guess, well, it's 6 in the list of DLE announcements, but they did provide some clarification on that because we did have some questions coming back, with some contracts that are being awarded, exactly when they had to start putting in this extra language about Title VI directly into some of the contracts that are being bid. So let's see. And I think I do have a fairly current list there of all the training coming up. Hopefully that's working out for anybody who is, trying to get signed up. All these ones we used to, try to have in our district office, that they've been pretty much been going online, especially in the popular ones like Resident Engineer Academy, that whole federal aid series. they've broken it up into different modules, so you don't have to take it all in a week-long block. And so hopefully you're seeing some of the latest dates there. Again, if you go to the local technical assistance program website, that'll give you more information on the links. And a lot of them are very free, reduced cost. And I've heard somebody that federal aid series on environmental requirements that was offered just a couple days this week. I heard it was actually very good and very informative in that new format that they're doing. So I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Rob. Any questions? Looks like a couple. Zubir. Zubir, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Thanks, Rob. I really appreciate it. And I was going to thank you that providing all those detailed information for any one of us who wants to read all of that. But for you, just, here's the highlight of it. And here's what's maybe important to you. That's awesome the way you do it.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully this is not the only place you're hearing this. That's the main thing.
And so the last page was about the piloting experimental marking. I think that's part of yours that you have submitted. And I think what this one is a little bit missing is that what we call the IA, which is the interim approval by the federal government. I think that if I recall, that red pavement for the bus lanes already approved by the federal government as an interim approval before it goes to so that means you don't need experiment. All you need is a letter to the Fed and they tell you, okay, go ahead, do it. Because they already approved it based on previous experiment. I think the red pavement is included in that. I'm not sure, but I'm just saying to the people that put in this flyer together to make sure that the agency knows that there are some like the green pavement for the bike lanes. You don't need an experiment. It's already approved as an interim approval. So they know that they can do it. They can do it. I mean, green pavement, a lot of agencies do it, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And
yeah, I don't know if they were trying to include examples that have been approved and or
right.
What they were actually highlighting when they put together that flyer.
Right. Yes. Yeah. The experiment is not easy.
Suggestions or
yeah. And the experiment is not easy. I mean, you got a commitment, and Hamid can tell you about it. But it really is a commitment to the agency that it needs to follow up on it, not just do it and drop it. So that's and the last thing I wanted to say. Sorry, Chair, but in California, our California MUTCD technically does not apply to private roadway open to the public unless the agency has a resolution with that private owners to enforce it using the agency, police, because it goes back to the police, force. So nationwide, yes, it's a different story. But in California, we said no, you can't use the MUTCD on private roadway unless the council has a resolution that says we will provide you enforcement on those roadways. So that's like a technicality that needs to be I guess brought out, because I
always wondered why when you go to like Disney World or someplace, their signs are like kind of slightly different. I mean, they look fairly standard, but they've tweaked them a little bit to kind of like
they don't have to apply. That's great. Yeah.
Is
and
the
technically,
Disney version of
right, and technically, like universities, if you go to universities, they could do it differently. I mean, they probably won't, because the MUTCD would protect them from a liability perspective, but they could if they want. But anyway, thanks, Mr. Chair.
Alrighty, keeping an eye on the time, but Hamid, go ahead real quick.
Just one thing very quickly, and we were talking about the need for these meetings and focus and what we can do regional. Just one thing, and Rob, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but just something for thinking and for future. I think we can improve the process for when we are doing work in Caltrans right of way or on a major or interchange areas. And we need the Caltrans review and permit of our plans. We just experienced one on Mission Avenue and I-5, and that is a rather urgent project for us. It's important because, as you may know, we are opening a major development by the beach, OBR, Oceanside Beach Resort, and that that is slated to open in spring, and we want to completely resurface and refurbish that area. And these permit reviews by Caltrans were quite lengthy. So when you get a chance, if be offline, we can talk about it and see how we can work more collaboratively rather than going through like bureaucratic channels and back and forth, and to expedite our plan review and permit process from Caltrans. And any thought you may have, I appreciate that. This one, I think we have had a word that we're going to get the permit this week, but it was a pretty lengthy process. I think it can be improved.
Yeah, certainly. And the permits office manager here, who's now over planning and local assistance, or she came from that background in permits, so she probably.
I would love the opportunity to maybe chat with you and her offline and kind of for future. I mean, this one is under water on the bridge, but for future, if we have cases like this, I think we can do better.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly appropriate topic either.
Sure.
Individually or in a larger forum if there's.
Sure. Thank you.
Topic.
Alrighty. Thanks, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and move us along. Next item on the agenda, CTAC meeting briefing. I suspect that briefing would talk about a lot of what we talked about today. Ellison, do we have a report, a brief report?
Typically Mario does it, but
right.
Given in the interest of time, I'm hoping members can review the agenda on their own and we can move on.
Perfect. Sounds good to me. That brings us to item 8, matters from members. Anybody have anything that they wanted to chat about?
I think we covered that in the COVID.
Probably, right? So I'm not seeing anything. So we'll move along. Upcoming agenda items. We've got our meeting, joint meeting at December 3rd that we've already discussed, and I'm sure we'll have more to chat about on the same subject at future meetings. So that covers item number 10. Brings us to 11, adjournment. Thank you again, everybody, for attending today. We'll see you on the 3rd.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was great. It was really
happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.